What's up, Questers? It's time for another Quoorn's Quest game review, and I'm looking at a brand new way to play Pokemon. Well, it's not exactly new, it's actually one of the oldest ROM hacks that's out there for Pokemon. I'm talking about Pokemon Light Platinum, and we're gonna dive into what exactly is Pokemon Light Platinum. So Pokemon Light Platinum uses the Fire Red engine, but it comes with two unique regions and Pokemon from generations 1 through 5. So let's get into why Pokemon Light Platinum might be your next ROM hack play. Let's start with the story of Pokemon Light Platinum. Now the story does follow the traditional kind of story method. There's an evil team, in this case Team Steam, that sets out to actually capture Arceus, and in the process of capturing Arceus, they unleash all the legendary Pokemon from generations 1 through 5 onto the world. Which means it's your job as the protagonist to stop them, but that doesn't mean you can't participate in the Gym League challenge as well as you go through the game. Now this game offers a lot of unique characters that play into the story, such as all the protagonists from generations 1 through generation 4, as well as side characters like Cynthia, Professor Oak, Professor Elm, even the champion himself, Ash Ketchum. And these are all people that you can battle against, or in the professor's case, every professor you find gives you an option of the 3 starters from their region to pick from, which I think is super unique. And playing it for the first time, it felt like the world of Pokemon was truly expanded. All these characters coming to this new region to try out their Pokemon League really kind of made you realize that just because you might be champion in one region does not mean you're the best. In the case of Ash Ketchum in this game, he has actually conquered all the other regions due to the anime, and we are actually seeing him as the world champion years before he becomes world champion in the actual anime. Now that we have an understanding of what the story is, let's look at the world of Pokemon Light Platinum. So the world of Light Platinum, it takes place in the Zuri region, where it is actually kind of unique, where it has a lot of different caves to explore, different woods to explore, deserts, all these really cool things. But one thing that I will say is that the Pokemon in this region are not too unique. So right off the bat, when you walk into the first kind of area, you'll notice that there's a lot of bug-type Pokemon, flying-type Pokemon, a few electric, you know, like what feels like the standard. And you may not think too much of it. I know I didn't right away. But as you move on through the world, you realize all the Pokemon in this region are kind of sectioned off into like these little sub-areas that are the routes. And I know Pokemon already kind of does that with their games, such as if you're surfing on the water, you're probably not gonna run into a Skiploom. You're probably gonna run into something like a Mantine. But in this game, you can actually, on dry land, run into a ton of water Pokemon in certain areas, because coming up in that area is most likely a gym that they will be super effective against. So somehow the world of Zuri is actually helping its trainers prepare for the Pokemon League, which is kind of an issue for me because it takes me out of that kind of world that they're trying to build with this ROM hack. So that's kind of unfortunate that like within the world of it, it's so sectioned off. Like if you go into a fire cave, you're finding all the fire Pokemon. If you're going into the desert, it's nothing but desert Pokemon. There's very little variety, which again, is not a huge fault, but it is kind of an issue in that sense because everything is very limited. Around the ice gym is nothing but ice Pokemon. There's not even like in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, some like Medicham that might train in the mountain. The lore of the Pokemon don't always add up. That's definitely one thing to consider, that when you catch Pokemon along the way, they are definitely geared up to help you with your upcoming challenge. But catching Pokemon can actually be kind of difficult in this game, is what I found out. Because it's a ROM hack, they tried to make some new improvements to the games, which means you get some better items right away, such as Great Balls and Max Potions and Hyper Potions, and even Ultra Balls you can get in the first town. Unfortunately, you can't really find Pokeballs too easily. I'm guessing because, in all honesty, they're not the most effective as you go through the game, but this is where it gets a little tricky. The pricing of all these really nice items aren't different. They are still very, very expensive, like you would get as you progress through the game naturally, but because you can get them right away and they are your only option, you have to be very selective with your team or find some way to make extra money in the game. One cool thing I did notice is that right away you can get into the Safari Zone, which is kind of interesting because I'm pretty sure I went there before I even got my starter Pokemon. So my technical starter Pokemon was a Snorunt, which is kind of nice because they give you Safari Balls and you just have to pay, so you can use some of your money off the bat to go to these 4 different kind of regions in the Safari Zone to catch very specific types of Pokemon that can help you along the way, which is what I did, and did find that helpful. And first time playing, I thought it was very cool that you could go to the Safari Zone and get unique Pokemon super early in the game. But again, the items being so expensive right off the bat means that you have to be very strategic when you play the game, which means it can get rather difficult. So it was kind of hard for me to do a lot of variation because by the 4th gym, I stopped going to the Pokemarts. They were just too expensive. I was just getting by with held items, running back to the Pokemon Center, just kind of doing what you could to keep it progressing without having to spend money, which means I didn't really get to explore with my team too much. I pretty much used the same 6 Pokemon throughout the entire game, minus there was like 1 or 2 that would change out here and there as I progressed, just to kind of, because I got access to better Pokemon. So the world of Zuri is rather limiting, but that doesn't mean that it's not still a fun region to explore. It was very unique, and you actually got to use a lot of HMs in the game to help you explore, such as the dive, surf, and even a new one called lava surfing, where you get on the back of a Magcargo, and when you're actually doing any HM, you get to see a unique sprite for the Pokemon. When you're running around and surfing, you actually run around on a Sharpedo, which I thought was a pretty cool addition. Now let's talk about the overall difficulty of Pokemon Light Platinum. As I mentioned, this region is very expensive, but you do get some very nice items if you can afford them. But what I also noticed as far as the difficulty goes, it does not level scale very, very easily or effectively at all. So when you first start the game, obviously you kind of have your basic level Pokemon, right? Level 5, level 10s and whatnot here and there if they're rare. And you go up the first gym and they're like 12 to 15 levels. That's pretty normal, right? But as you actually progress, the wild Pokemon only go up by maybe 5 levels, where the gyms go up by 10. By the time I got to the 8th gym, I was going up against Pokemon that were level 64, which was definitely a little bit of a bummer, and I'm very glad I ran with a pretty consistent team throughout the entire time. Luckily, you do have access to a lot of starters and a lot of trade Pokemon along the way that are very, very powerful and can help you along the way. But whenever you do receive these Pokemon, they are a low level, so expect a lot of tedious grinding if you want to be on par with the Pokemon you're going to be going up against as you progress through the game. Because like I said, the wild Pokemon, for some reason, just don't really level scale very well. Like, in between gyms, you might run through 2 different areas, and they might only go up by like 1 or 2 levels, and then all of a sudden you're going up against a gym that is at least 10 levels higher than the wild Pokemon you encountered. And this does not stop at the gyms. Once you get to the Elite Four, you're going up against level 60, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be hitting some level 70 Pokemon. By the time I got to the end of it, I was going up against a level 74 Garchomp, and let me tell you, Cynthia is nothing compared to this thing one-shotting my entire team. And this might sound really odd because, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of Pokemon characters in this world that do want to battle you. You have protagonists from generations 1 through 4 that battle you often in the game. But one thing I noticed that was a little odd is that at the beginning of the game, they have quite a bit of a team. You know, they are really growing their team with you as normal. They might start with 2 Pokemon, and then you see them again a little bit later, they have 4, you see them a little bit later, and they have 5, and you expect them to have a full team of Pokemon by the time you're battling them when you get close to the Elite Four in the final gym. But this is actually not the case, unfortunately. For whatever reason, the other protagonists you go up against from previous games that are supposed to kind of be your mini-bosses have no team whatsoever. All of a sudden, they drop down to only having 2 Pokemon on their team at an incredibly high level. Which means to effectively take them down, you have to take them down with a Pokemon that is super effective to them, and unfortunately, that means only a few of your Pokemon are actually getting those really nice level boosts. And in most cases, for whatever reason, they use the same generic, typically super powerful Pokemon like across the board. I think at least 2 of them had a Garchomp, 2 of them had a Charizard, and when your whole team is just made up of 2 Pokemon, again, you're just gonna keep running the same Pokemon, so you're gonna have an over-leveled Pokemon, and then all your other Pokemon down here are not gonna stand a chance at getting any sort of levels without tedious grinding. And the same goes for the evil team, Team Steam. When you first go up against them, they're kind of difficult. The beginning half of the game is pretty hard in the sense of like, they're giving you a challenge which can level up your team quickly and efficiently. But then, yeah, once you start getting to the halfway point and definitely towards like the end game, everyone's running around with just 2 super powerful Pokemon. I don't really know the strategy behind that with the developers, and it really hindered the gameplay because only 2 of my Pokemon became very powerful because even the evil team Steam follows a battle style. They have a theme to them for their Pokemon, so you kind of use the same Pokemon over and over again once you battle them, and it just kind of goes with uneven level scaling for your team as well as for the Pokemon you go up against. So in closing, what is Pokemon Light Platinum? Pokemon Light Platinum is a fun but very challenging game to get into. If you do prefer a more challenging Pokemon game, I would recommend this. If you are a casual player like me playing casually, I did not have a ton of fun playing this game. It did not age very well. Unfortunately, because of its difficulty, you really do have to like put some time and effort into it. You can't casually play it on your phone like I was type of thing, which again, some people like a challenge, some people like just casual gameplay. If you're in for a challenge, Pokemon Light Platinum is 100% for you. And thank you all for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Quoorn's Quest, and leave a comment down below about what you thought of Pokemon Light Platinum if you've ever played it. And if you have a Pokemon ROM hack you want me to play and review next, leave it down in the comments as well. I hope to see you next time, and remember, happy questing, y'all. Thank you.